Okay. It's called the octaves, or first, second, third, fourth, from the fourth way teaching. On a piano, there is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then there is an interval, and then it goes higher, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and an interval, and then on up, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and on a piano that is a few times, a handful of times. It happens that way. So in the fourth way, they call that first, second, third, fourth. So you can think of first force in this way. First force is when you're on a positive roll. Like a really fun teaching that explains a lot is the Abraham Hicks materials. And feel free to chime in if any of you are comfortable being recorded. Your faces are not on camera, but if you feel like saying something, your faces are still not on camera. Abraham Hicks is about the law of deliberate creation, the law of allowing. I can't remember the other ones, but you can ask for what you want. But if you aren't open to letting it in, it's kind of like ordering the perfect pizza, exactly the pizza you've always wanted. And the doorbell rings and you open the door and there's the guy and he says, I brought you exactly the pizza that you ordered. Here it is. And you said, no. And you slam the door. So if you're not prepared, you can ask for what you want. But if you aren't open to receiving it, it'll come and you won't recognize it and you'll push it away. So that can happen a lot, but we hit those moments in our life where we're having the first force experience and we're just on a roll. We're on a roll. And one of my favorite examples is when I was 32, 33. When I was 30, I realized, wow, I have a mistaken belief system that I can't buy a house without a man. And I remember realizing that one night and I laughed out loud. It was this moment of realization. So I had the realization, I am waiting for a man to buy a house with. Yeah, so that's bullshit. BS, belief system, bullshit. So I read The Richest Man in Babylon, which is a great book if you've never read it. And I started doing what it said to do in the book. And I started taking 10% off the top of everything I earned. And I put it in my SDM account. That was my sock drawer money account. This is the olden days. We didn't have Venmo or Zelle. We had cash and checks. So I would usually at the end of every week or every day have a certain amount of cash. I would put that in my SDM. And that money multiplies. That money has babies together. So pretty quickly, I feel like within a year, I had saved up a down payment. And also money came from other sources that I did not expect it from, which that happens too, because it was changing my psyche. I was more open to receiving. So when you're more open to receiving, money comes from unexpected sources, which I have to say, I'm 66. I've bought quite a few cars in my life, and that's happened every single time I've ever bought a car. Is something happens within a year or so after I have purchased a car. I'm making car payments, and then randomly some pile of money will fall on my head and I will just pay off my car so I don't have car payments, which happened with my Beetlebug that I have right now. So, So, I saved up enough money. I put a down payment on a really cute house in the Coronado Historic District. It was a really cute house with a guest house, which is a very smart purchase. And everything was going great. And I even scheduled things so that my new phones would be turned on at my new place. And my old phones wouldn't be turned off until a week later. So there was a week overlap, and I could move at a leisurely pace. I didn't want to have to rush. I didn't want to have to do it all in one day. And that was the olden days. We used to have Southwestern Bell, which was our telephone company. And they were a huge company, and they almost always made mistakes. So, of course, on this one very busy day where back when I was a young counselor, I was not as nice to myself as I am now. So back then I'd be very busy and I would only take a half hour for lunch. And by the way, the faster you try to run on the hamster wheel, the faster the hamster wheel spins. So everything was going great. I was on a positive roll. I got the bank loan, I got the phones, I got the utility, everything was set. And my phones go off a week early. Instead of turning the phones on a week early at the new place, I had no phones. They turned off my old phones a whole week too early. So I was furious. I was so frustrated. Everything was scheduled properly. I thought I was very clear. And back then, I lived on Highland, just west of 16th Street. And there used to be a Pugsy's sandwich lunch place there. And all the business people would go there to get their lunch. So I knew they had a payphone. So I, quick as I could, ran across the street because my phone was my only way to communicate with my clients. Like, did I own a computer yet? I might have, but I couldn't just, like, email was not an option. It just, I needed my phones. So I ran across the street to Pugsy's, and it was a beautiful spring day, but that was lost on me because I was in a second force spin. So every time you're on a first force roll, which is positive, first force is positive, you're on a roll. You know, have you ever met one of those people who says, why does this always happen to me? Things are going so well, and then I'm blindsided. Right? We're going so well. Why does something bad always have to happen? Why does this always happen to me? Why? Because it happens to everybody. It's just some people get really upset about it. Second force is a negative experience. And it's a test. Because when we're doing this first force, like on a roll, like when I was trying to quit cigarettes, and cigarettes is the number one hardest drug to quit. I would do okay, and I smoked from the time I was 10 years old. I'd be doing okay, and then some stressful thing would happen, and then I would go back to smoking. So, like, I can remember my sister, who was 1 year older than me, she would leave her pack laying around the house, and I can remember saying to her, you know, I'm trying to quit, so it would really help me if you don't leave your cigarettes laying around. And she would get mad about that and kind of yell at me and then storm out. And I thought, I'm 3 days clean, but that was so upsetting and that made me so mad. I'll show her. I'll smoke her whole pack. And I would smoke the whole pack. So there are people who spend their life doing this first ladder over and over. This first, I don't know if you guys can see the bottom of oh, there we go. Wait, no. Oh, you can see that just fine. Okay. So,
hey, Jane, I can't really see. What does it say above first force? What's that word?
First force, and this says positive. So when you're on a positive roll, let me move you guys up a little bit. Just know that you're still not on the screen. You're still not being recorded. Does that help? How's that?
No, totally. Sorry. At least for me, I don't know about others. It needs to go. Yep, the way you were going, to the right.
Like this? Oh.
Yep, more. Yep, there you go. That was perfect. Yep, thank you.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Okay, so, see, you guys are on the screen now. let me put this over here. Okay. Trying to give everybody privacy while we're talking about this. Some people, like, for instance, with the cigarettes, I could make it maybe 3 days, and then I'd have some second force experience, some stressful experience, and I would hit my head on my ceiling for joy or goodness or positive things happening. I would hit my head on the ceiling, and then I would go back to the bottom rung of the ladder and start smoking again. So sometimes for some people, they keep doing that first ladder over and over and over. They keep on having the same negative experiences over and over and over. Bark outside. Thank you. So that was me with cigarettes for a long time. So that's our patterns. We're stuck in a pattern. Second force, negative experience. It's a test to see if you pass the test, you can graduate to the higher levels where life is easier and more graceful, and there's more love and health, wealth, peace, money, joy, goodness, everything you desire and deserve. So we had just learned about this from my soul dad, George Adair, at the Omega Vector, which is the self-awareness workshop I went through all those years ago, which was kind of the beginning of me waking up. So we had just learned about this first, second, third force. This is so long ago. This is 36 years ago now. 34, 35. So I finally learned to save money. I have this house, the escrow is closed, the phones go off early, I'm screwed, I'm stuck without phones, I'm so mad, I'm in a negative downward spiral, having a negative second force experience. Now, sometimes, if you're lucky, the universe will conspire to give you a third force experience, or if you know about this stuff, about this thing I'm showing you right now, you can reach for it, you can ask for a third force experience, a breakthrough experience. So I'm waiting in the courtyard of Pugsy's. It's a gorgeous spring day, which I don't notice because I'm so mad. There's a guy on the payphone. I'm just standing there tapping my foot. You know, I had to find a quarter. I'm standing there waiting for this guy to get off the phone. It's busy, lunch rush hour. So there's business people at the tables in their courtyard, in their beautiful courtyard. You know, and there's a line of people getting sandwiches, and there's this guy on the phone and me standing in this courtyard where the payphone was, waiting for him to get off the phone. Finally, he gets off the phone, hallelujah. I put my quarter in, I call up Southwestern Bell, and now I'm on hold. So I'm still mad, I'm so mad, I'm so frustrated. Everything was going so well. Why does this have to happen? So I'm waiting, I'm on hold. I'm in this downward spiral because of this second force experience. And then I'm looking at nothing in particular, and this table of people across the way in the middle of the courtyard having their lunch, this young man who's dressed in a nice white shirt and a tie, and he's got slacks on, and you know, he's dressed nicely. You know, he's a young businessman. And he gets up from his table of friends and he picks up his tray and he reaches underneath the table and he picks up a crutch that fits over his arm, and he picks up the other people's trash, puts it on his tray, his friend's trash, and then he walks to the trash can very bent over, like obviously has some debilitating disease. And it was like a slap in the face. It woke me up. It was like somebody dumped freezing cold water over my head. A split second before a voice comes on the other line on the phone and says, "Hello, this is Southwestern Bell. How may I help you?" And I said, "Hi." "Hi. My name's Jane, and there's a little problem with my phones. They got turned off a week early, and it was supposed to be the other way around." And the voice at the other end says, "Jane? Jane Fendelman?" "Yeah." "Jane, this is Julie, your Omega buddy." It was a really good girlfriend of mine from the weekend workshop I went through where I had this big awakening experience. Just, I don't know, 10 months earlier. And, we went every weekend, and everybody was good friends, and we cleaned and we volunteered, and we supported this wonderful workshop. And I mean, I was shocked that I said, Julie, oh my God, this is like, what are the odds that I would get you? I would get you out of all the operators. And she said the odds are like 10,000 to 1 that you would get me. And I was like, Julie, I was just having a second force spin. I was in a second force experience, and I was so mad. And right before you picked up the phone, when I was standing here on hold, I had a third force breakthrough, slap in the face experience. And like, if that didn't happen and you answered the phone, I would have ripped your head off. And we laughed, and it's been 34 years later, and we still laugh about it. Julie and I still laugh about it. She knows that I share this story with people. So a third force breakthrough experience, like just 1 second sooner, and I would have ripped her head off because I was so mad. I was in this negative downward spiral, second force experience. It's negative. It's the test. Just don't forget. It's just a test, and everybody gets it before you can go to the next level. A third force breakthrough experience. It can be something like I had on that day. Breakthrough experience. Something that the universe puts together for you. If you're lucky, you can also, now that you know this, realize, oh, I'm in a second force spin. I need to post something in the Wild Woman's Goddess group text thread. Or I need to reach out for a counseling session. Or I need to read that book that I know really gets me out of my mindset. Or I need to go to that workshop, or I need to go to that dance class, or something. So a third force breakthrough experience gets you through this level where you hit your head on your ceiling. Because in this first octave, when we get, we're on this first force roll, it's positive. We have a saturation point. We have a pre-programmed capacity for receiving. So if what I got growing up was a Dixie cup full of love, and someone comes along and tries to give me a gallon of love, it's going to be really uncomfortable. It's going to feel really weird, and I'm going to find a way to push it away or sabotage it. If I expand my capacity, my own capacity for receiving to, let's say, a gallon, and someone comes along and they try to give me a gallon, I'll be able to hold that love. Also, let's say I expand my capacity for receiving. And what I have available now is a gallon. I can hold a gallon, or a drum, or I can hold a pipeline to the ocean of love. And someone comes along and they try to give me a Dixie cup full of love, and they want us to be close and be in a relationship and be together. And I'm feeling that what they're able or willing to give is a Dixie cup. I just say, I'm so sorry, you're lovely, it just won't work. It won't work, because remember, we don't have to say right, wrong, good, bad. We just say works, doesn't work. Now, here's the end of this, and then I'm going to turn off the camera, and then we're going to talk about it. You have this third force breakthrough experience. It takes you into the higher octaves, where there's more love, health, wealth, peace, security, contentment, joy, relaxation, romance, sex, everything that you want, everything that you desire and deserve. The higher you go in the octaves, the more of that you'll receive, because higher you go in the octaves, you're actually expanding your capacity for receiving too. But going into the higher octaves means, so this first force, I'm on a roll. First force means you're on a roll. First force. The test. Second force, when you're on a roll. The tests are harder. Why? Because you're more capable. See, in these higher octaves, you've done the work. You passed the test. You had a third force awakening. And because you're more capable, the test is harder. It's like a test that you would take in 7th grade in junior high school is way harder than a test you would take in 1st grade down here in the lower octaves. So the higher you go. So somebody like me, I can be on a first force roll, and then the washing machine breaks down on the same day that I get a speeding ticket and my taxes are due. And that's like a negative second force experience. It could knock me off, course. And then I might reach out to a friend or ask my old counselor, Sue Gilmore, to have lunch with me, or read a book or listen to a video, or go dancing, something that I know gives me a third force breakthrough experience. So I'm down here, whereas somebody who's way up here, somebody who's very loved, maybe the world over, Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Jesus Christ, way up here in the higher octaves, very loved by millions and millions of people, loved and known and appreciated, admired, respected. But their second force experience for somebody like that in the high octaves there, where they're receiving more of everything. Like I heard a story about Mother Teresa. She could fly anywhere in the world for free. All she had to do was walk into an airport, and they would say, Mother Teresa, bless you, hi, hello, how are you? Can we give you a ticket? Where do you need to go? We're gonna put you in first class. And she would always say no to first class. But they would just fly her. She didn't need money, because the world just gave to her, because she was way up here in the higher octaves. But then somebody way up there in those high octaves, a second force test is something like a nation of starving people, children dying of disease, just along the road, walking along. That's a big second force experience. Or like Jesus nailed to a cross, crown of thorns, tortured to death. That's a second force experience for somebody like that. And here's the last thing I'll say. If you think about the story, I haven't read all the Bibles, but I know a lot of the stories. And I know there's a story about Jesus, and he's on the cross, dying. And there's a story about where he says, "Oh, Father, why have you forsaken me?" That's a second force spin. "Oh, Father, why have you forsaken me?" That's doubt. That's sadness. That's fear. That's anger. That's that feeling you're being pulled down, second force. And then, because he was open to hearing it, he hears the voice of his Father. My son, I never left you. I've been here all along. I never left you, not even for a moment. Third force experience, and then he ascends. Pretty cool, huh? So whenever you're having, things are going so well, why is this happening to me now? Things were going so well. That is a first force, second force experience, and you have to reach out or be open to someone or something that allows you to have a third force breakthrough. Ta-da! Okay, I'm turning off the camera.